that music. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, you beautiful people, for joining me for my UCOOK cook-along. And I can't wait. Let's get cooking, guys. Duck. When last did you do duck at home?
We are joined here this evening with Franck Dangereux from the Foodbarn. Say hi again, Franck, to our viewers at home.
Good evening, everyone.
So a big welcome to everyone who is tuning in for our second UCOOK along, especially those of you who are ready to tackle duck with us for the first time. My name is Nick, and I will be your socially distant off-camera host for the evening. And we are very privileged tonight to have Franck take us through his method of duck breast with a gooseberry gastrique. So if you are at home and you haven't done so already, get your ingredients ready. Make sure your oven is preheated to 200 degrees and pour yourself a glass of wine. UCOOK is supporting the staff of the Foodbarn tonight, not just by donating the proceeds from the sale of Franck's dish, but also giving you the opportunity at home to donate. So if you're cooking with us, you can use the SnapScan code you'll find in your box. And if you're just tuning in, we'll post it at the end of the show. But enough with the introductions. I think we are all ready to get cooking. Are you ready, Franck?
Thanks, Nick. Absolutely. Okay, guys, so as Nick said, you should have all your ingredients ready. Your oven on 200. Ovens are a bit weird. Sometimes your oven might be hotter than my oven, so we're gonna have to do the potatoes and see how they go. Keep an eye on them. And this is something that's not in your recipe. I've got Wild Rocket here, so it came to you in a packet. So what I wanna do, I'm just gonna take a little bowl and put ice cold water in it, just to put the rocket that came in your packet in there. Just while we cook, everything else is gonna soak into that water and become lovely and firm again, in case it has wilted a bit.
Franck, is this something you can do with any herb or green leaf that you are preparing?
Excuse me?
Is this something you can do with any herb or green leaf?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. So, you know, if you buy them in a packet, sometimes there's nothing worse than a bit of grit as well. You buy leaves and you kind of trust they're going to be clean. That's actually why when I buy salads, I normally buy the whole salad, because then I clean it at home and I know it's had a good soak. And after you cleaned it, it's lovely and crisp. Okay, so the rocket is soaking and we're gonna leave it there. Next up, we're gonna do the potatoes. So potatoes, I've got a little oven tray here. So these are baby potatoes. Some of them are a bit bigger than others. So what I'll do is the biggest ones I'll cut in half, and if there are some small ones, I'll just keep them whole. And I just put them on a tray, one by one. So you guys are doing this with me. It's super easy. If you think about that dish, it's got everything you need on it. It's got a little starch with the potatoes. We'll have the rocket. Wild Rocket is my favorite because it's quite a bit more peppery than normal rocket. And I love how small and slightly stringy the leaves are. And we're gonna have the duck, which is rich with this beautiful skin. And of course, the gooseberry sauce. These guys are small enough to stay whole, so I'm going to leave them whole.
Franck, could you let us know what portion you're cooking for this evening?
So I'm cooking for 2 people. So obviously, if you guys are cooking for 1, you need to cut down. And if you're cooking for 4, you need to double your ingredients. Garlic, having said that, I mean, the recipe, I think, says for 2 garlic cloves per person. So at least you must have that in there. And as you can see, I'm actually leaving them in the skin. So they are completely, it's quite nice to leave them in the skin, because when they bake together with the potatoes, the skin cracks a little bit and the garlic inside is like soft and absolutely beautiful. So garlic is in. The rosemary, you basically pull it slightly, just remove it from the stem. Put everything in. I actually put the stem in as well, just for flavor. As it heats up, the oils come out. We're going to put a little drizzle of olive oil on this. Like that. Rather be slightly generous with the olive oil in the corners as well, because as the pan heats up and it dries a little bit, those potatoes are going to soak up all that oil. A little bit of salt over everything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to toss everything as well. And a little bit of pepper.
Would you say it's better to season your potatoes before you cook them?
Yeah, look, in that case you would. If you were to make French fries at home, I wouldn't season them. It's like when you make roast potatoes as well, because there's like a whole technique for roast potatoes. You have to slightly parboil them, so it's better to season them afterward, like fries. But these baby guys, they're good like that. So if you can see what I'm doing, I'm actually turning them face down so that the area that's been cut is actually into the oil. That way it'll get a good color and it'll be nice and crispy on that side. Okay, so that goes into the oven. $200 overall time for this, about half an hour.
Well, while the potatoes are getting their roast on, Franck, could you tell us a bit more about the Foodbarn?
So Foodbarn is a lovely restaurant that we created 15 years ago in Noordhoek. And it has a restaurant element, and it used to have a deli. It has a deli component, which has a bakery and a coffee shop. And unfortunately, now the restaurant is still closed. And thankfully, we were able to keep the shop open. And so now, obviously, the shop has gotten bigger because we couldn't have a coffee shop anymore. And so the bakery has grown, and the biscuits have grown, and we're making frozen meals, and we're making pies. So in a weird way, this side of the business has expanded while the restaurant has remained closed. So then we've been thinking of things to do to re-employ people. So obviously the tapas team came back about 2 weeks into lockdown, and we started to offer tapas takeaways, which has been going really, really good. And now we are thinking of reopening the main restaurant, but with a different offering, a coffee shop offering. Yeah.
And how did you and your staff feel when, the hard lockdown began? What was going through your mind?
It was devastating. I mean, it's a weird thing when you're told that you have to stop everything, when you have to turn off the engine. I mean, a restaurant is such a thing. You've got orders coming in, you've got prep going in, everything is on. Sometimes you have a stock pot that stays on overnight, cooking slowly in the kitchen. So, you have to stop that engine. So there's that aspect. And then the other aspect is the unknown and the fact that everybody has to potentially lose their job. It was really freaky and devastating. But it also gave us a lot of things to think about. And we kind of opened our mind to the possibilities.
Well, on to some good news about, the ethos of the Foodbarn. I know that you have said in the past it's all about bringing fine dining to the streets. Could you let our viewers know what that's about?
So, I come from a fine dining background, spent many years, 10 years in fact, in Constantia at La Colombe. And what I wanted to do with the Foodbarn, initially I had that thought that I wanted to go to the country and stop doing fine dining and sell sandwiches and spend half of my time at home with my kids, which did not work out at all. I ended up working much harder, but, couldn't go against my nature, and we started to cook seriously again and have a lot of fun in the kitchen. And as a result, we created almost a fine dining fair, but in a completely chilled environment in a barn. So, people coming back from the beach with sandy feet, sometimes even with their dog. Welcome at the Foodbarn.
Speaking of a fine dining affair, I think we should get going with our next step, which I know a lot of people may be quite intimidated by, and that is preparing our duck.
Okay, so the duck is actually, how cool is this? I mean, people don't do duck at home. Hey, you're right. People are a little bit worried and they're not sure. So it's actually just about knowing how. So the duck came in a packet. So ideally, you want to take it out of the packet and pat it dry a little bit with a little tissue like that. So make sure sometimes there's a little bit of blood on it, or a bit of juice. So just make sure it's nice and dry. And also, I can see on these ones, the filet mignon is still attached, so the little guys. So take them off, just pull them like this, and leave them to the side. What we'll do is when we cook the duck, we'll give them a toss in the pan, and we can eat it as a little, it's like the little incentive for the cook. All right, so we're going to season the duck, score the duck, and season the duck now. So to score the duck, you basically just need a sharp knife. Put the duck on the board, skin side up, and then what you do is, using your knife, you do slight, thin incision in the fat only. So you try to, if you go into the flesh of the duck, you're pushing a little bit too far. And if your knife is not sharp enough, so I see my knife is not quite sharp. So here's a trick for you. If you don't have a good knife sharpening tool at home, what you do is take a mug, whoops, it's flying over my shoulder, take a mug, and then what happens is when people make mugs, the underneath of the mug is never glazed. So you have that slight rough outline. And all you do is you just run your blade slightly to an angle on the back of the mug. Like that, gently. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but you can see the black of my knife is leaving a residue on the edge of the mug. And what that means, it means that I've sharpened my blade slightly. So that's a good trick. I use it often, when you go into a guest house and it's got like a kitchen that's already equipped and they got their own equipment, knives and things, but none of them are sharp. That's what you do. So thin slices or thin cuts into the skin. And then we do one side and then you do the other side, which means I'm doing a crisscross pattern. Remember not to push too deep into the flesh. So I need you guys to tell me if I'm going too fast, because I can slow down a bit, although this is like really easy. But send a message to Nick and say to him, hold on, Franck, you're going too fast.
For those of you who are watching at home, please know that you can send in your questions via Facebook, Instagram, or the YouTube live feed. Franck would love to answer them, so keep them coming, and throughout the cook-along, he'll get to them.
Okay, this is the most difficult part of the recipe, guys. Thereafter, we are cruising. It's so easy. So easy and so smart. It's quite smart to have a duck dish at home. Okay, so my duck has been scored on both sides. So now I return the duck to the tray, and I'm going to season it. So seasoning for meat that's about to be cooked is very important. It needs to be done before the meat is cooked, but not too long before, and not with too much salt. If you're going to do it too far in advance, like an hour in advance, you'll start a curing process, essentially, which is not good. So you just want to season it pretty much as if you were, think of it as you're going to season it as if you were putting salt on a baked potato, for example, and you want it to be nicely salty. That's the amount you're looking at. So you put salt and pepper. We're going to do both sides. So salt and pepper on the duck. Salt and fresh pepper. Like that.
Franck, for those at home who have not cooked with duck before, it looks like almost a red meat. Could you maybe let everyone know what makes duck so special?
Look, duck is a red meat. I mean, it's a bird, but it's a red meat. It's completely different to chicken. I mean, first of all, the skin structure is a lot thicker and a lot fatter, and the meat is bright red. What's interesting about duck is you can actually, I mean, we're cooking it, we're searing it tonight, but if you were to take the skin off completely and cut very thin slices, you could serve it raw, like a carpaccio. It's delicious. Or you could make a tartare out of duck. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you could also serve it confit. A confit is when you slow cook it in its own fat, which is also incredibly delicious. So I personally love duck. Yeah, as long as I know where my duck comes from, I think it's about origin and provenance. You need to know where your ingredients are from. You need to know that they've been reared properly.
We've got our first question from Tara, who wants to know if you can eat duck rare or medium rare. Is it fine to have it completely rare?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can actually eat duck raw. So it's completely fine to have it rare or medium rare. In fact, it's recommended to have medium rare, I would say. Rare can be a little bit, the flesh, the thing is, you got to get the skin cooked right. You got to get the skin cooked crispy and nice and brown. And in order to do that, if you're looking at this, it's actually not a very thick piece of meat. So, by the time we left it on the skin long enough for the skin to be crispy and cooked right, the meat would already have cooked almost halfway. So it's going to be on the meat side essentially for very, very short, virtually seconds. Okay, so I'm going to put this away for now. And we'll get back to it just now. So next, okay, are you guys following? You need to let me know if I need to slow down. Maybe grab, cheers, maybe grab a little bit of wine.
Those at home, don't be shy to have a glass yourself. We've got a question from Travis. What kind of protein can we substitute duck for?
So with this recipe, I would actually, so chicken would be very successful as long as you use a chicken breast that still has the skin on. So, you know, you need that fattiness for that dish because it's a sweet and sour sauce you need something to cut through the richness of the sauce. So you need the fat. But, ostrich would be fantastic. And, you know, seared ostrich steak would be lovely. Any venison, springbok, kudu would be fantastic as long as it's a very tender piece that you can also just sear. Yeah, I would stay away. I mean, I would even push it to say that you could even try salmon with that. Gooseberry and salmon just also have chemistry. You must watch the sugar with the salmon, though.
Now, I think a lot of home chefs tonight may not have made duck before, but they've definitely not made a gooseberry gastrique before. So I think they're probably quite excited to get started.
Interesting name, that gastrique.
Gastrique.
You say it quite well, gastrique.
Oh, merci. Can you let everyone know at home what that means?
So gastrique is actually taken from a very classical French cooking term, and what it is it's the start of a sauce, which you actually caramelize something sweet. So it can either be sugar or it can be honey, for example. You bring it to the heat on the stove and you bring it to the boil until it changes color. It starts to go blonde or brown. And when it's almost at the caramel stage, you deglaze that with something sour. So vinegar normally, but it can also be lemon or lime juice. So it gives you quite a range of things to play with. And basically what happens is when you deglaze the sugar with the vinegar or the lemon juice, it balances out, it equalizes the sauce. So you get sweet and sour that kind of mixed together in that perfect balance. And then to finish it, you add some stock. And you know, so depending on what you're serving it with, if you want a dark sauce, you can add a venison stock. For instance, tonight we're going to do chicken stock. If you had made a duck stock at home all by yourself, that would be the ideal. Okay, so shall we do the gooseberries?
Let's do it.
Right, so gooseberries are here. I suggest we give them a little wash. So just a bit of water. Give your gooseberries a little wash. Just in case it's got a little dirt on it. Okay, so we are going to save a few gooseberries for the salad. So I would say maybe 10. You just put them aside and we're going to keep them for later. And for the sauce, we're going to use, so I'm going to keep that pan on. We're using a heavy bottom pan. Something nice and thick, if you have that in your kitchen, would be great. It needs to be wide, so it can't be a sauce pot, okay? You need to have the width of the pan just to kind of like really fry the gooseberries. And then also when we deglaze, you'll see that sauce is done in virtually 3-4 minutes. It's really, really quick. It's all about mise en place. Have you heard that word before? Mise en place. It's like the preparation of the cook. Okay, my potatoes, I'm going to quickly check them, see if they need a toss. So actually, they're perfect. That's the beauty. When you put them on a tray wide enough and you face them down, you actually don't even need to toss them. You like leave them in until the bottom is nice and crispy. But these are going quick. My oven is a machine. Okay, this is on. Heat on. A little bit of olive oil.
Franck, would it matter using a non-stick surface pan or any kind of wide-based pan for a gastrique?
For the gastrique, it doesn't matter. It does not have to be non-stick. In fact, even for the duck later, I mean, at home, you're probably going to reuse the same pan. It's just once the gastrique is finished, you decant it, and then you rinse your pan. It does not have to be non-stick at all. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to put those into there. So I've got ready here my stock, and here is my mixture of vinegar and sugar. So what we've done is we kind of like got that all ready for you. Remember earlier I said that the gastrique sometimes was a caramel that was deglazed, so that gives you a darker sauce. Here, because we're working with gooseberries and I want to see the beautiful color, the bright yellow of them, I haven't cooked the sugar to a caramel. We just reduce the sugar a little bit and keeping it without color, so the sauce remained that beautiful light color. The good news is we're halfway there already. I mean, the potatoes are in, the duck is ready. We're going to make that sauce, and then we're almost there. Okay, so gooseberries in. And then if you have your vinegar and sugar mix decanted in a container, make sure you mix it because the sugar tends to fall to the bottom. And if it's still in the sachet, what I suggest you do is massage it a little bit before you cut the corner and put it in. Okay, I'd love to know if everyone is following and if we're not going too fast. But if no one's shouting, it probably means that we're good. Huh?
Seems like we're good, Franck. We do have a question from Laverne, who says, "Hi, Franck. Laverne here from Meridian Wines. What wine would you say goes well with this dish?"
Okay, so we've got duck, we've got gooseberries, which are a very interesting flavor, and we've got the pepperiness of the rocket. So if you're a white person, I would say go for a big, full-bodied Chenin Blanc. And if you're more a red person, although I think a Pinot Noir ultimately would be the wine that goes best with this dish. A lovely, light Pinot Noir with like a leathery kind of animal finish. Okay, so you can see these gooseberries are starting to pop a little bit, and they're getting a little bit of a color, which is perfect. So I'm going to now deglaze. So my heat is on full. Heat is on full. I deglaze with the syrup. So you see that beautiful thick pan immediately pops a lot of heat under there. Well, that's looking great. Then I'm going to add the stock. There's a little bit on the spoon I just want to get rid of. You can smell already. At that point, you can give it a taste. Just put your finger in there. It looks very hot, but actually, if you do it quickly enough, that's fine. Some pepper. Don't be shy on the pepper. You want a good turn of black pepper in there. On the other hand, do not put salt. Or don't put salt until the very end, because we put stock in there, and the stock does have a bit of salt in it.
We've got a question from a Gail who asks, she says she's never cooked with fruits before. What other fruits could work for a sauce like this?
Cherries, grapes. Grapes would be great with that dish. Any other berries would kind of fall apart. Obviously lemon and oranges, duck à l'orange, obviously. Quickly before so this is actually reduced enough. You don't want the sauce to reduce too much and be too syrupy. So if that happens to you, because it could happen at home, I can't see your pan. If you feel that it's gone a bit too far and it's too syrupy, just add a little bit of water in it and it'll be fine. Also, another good thing to do is to add butter. For those of you who know me, they will know that I love butter. I love butter in food. I love butter in sauces. So put a bit of butter, let the butter melt. and that sauce is ready. So I wasn't lying when I said to you, this is a quick sauce.
Franck, speaking of butter, if you were to choose your top 3 ingredients that you will always find in your kitchen, would butter be one of them? And what would they be?
Absolutely. Salt, olive oil, butter. These are my 3 ingredients, hands down. Hands down. And salt, I'll be lost without it. Okay, so butter is melted. That sauce is gorgeous. You can see what I mean is the color is just lovely. So that goes into a bowl. And I'm just going to cover it with a plate and keep it aside. Okay, so the sauce is done. And my potatoes, I'm going to check on them one more time. Yeah, 5 more minutes for the potatoes.
Franck, while we wait for our potatoes to finish, you have been challenged last week by Karen Dudley. And our viewers want to know, how fast can you chop an onion as a professional chef?
Are you asking me to think how about 20 seconds, maybe?
20 seconds. Karen Dudley managed a time of 21 seconds last week.
Okay, game on.
So let's see if we can do it. Are you ready to take UCOOK's onion chop challenge?
Okay, I'm ready.
Let's do it. Right, Franck, like I said, Karen Dudley was first on the leaderboard with a time of 21 seconds. You have an onion in front of you. We want to see how fast you can chop it. I'm going to count you in from 5 seconds. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, chop. Time.
What is the time? What is my time? Did you lose track of time?
You have made a time of 20 seconds, Franck, which means you are number 1 on the leaderboard.
Well done, Karen. I mean, seriously, this is not a very well chopped onion, by the way. But it's chopped.
It's all about the speed. Franck, is there anything you'd like to say to our next contender, Chef Ruben Riffel, who will be next week's contestant?
Yo, Rubes, Ruben and I have been in a naked photo shoot together. So crying over an onion is going to be easy, bud. But good luck to you. 20 seconds, 20 seconds. Maybe if you can chop yours better in 20 seconds. I think, let's see, we need to refine this. I'd like to do it again now because I just got myself going. We need to check on those potatoes again, guys. Let me just do that.
While Franck is checking on his potatoes, we're going to be taking a very quick break. So fill up your glasses, check on your own potatoes, and we'll be right back in just a minute.
So I'm going to take them out, eh? So when, by the Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to the Cook Along with UCOOK. So, potatoes are ready. I'm going to take them out of the oven now. My pan, my second pan for the duck, I just turned the flame on, and I'm going to put it on medium to high heat. So the same pan has been rinsed. Oven, potatoes ready. So these are gorgeous. Look at those. Just want to show you quick while we're on that camera. So remember what I was telling you earlier about how beautiful and crispy they become. So I'm going to actually leave them in the oil just to soak up that last bit of oil. And I'm going to put it on that side. And then the next thing we're going to do is cook the duck. So pan, medium to high heat, and no oil is needed. Basically, we're going to put the duck with the skin side down straight into the pan, and the fat will render. You'll see it's quite incredible how much fat we're going to release out of that skin. So put it down. Initially, it's not going to make a noise, and gradually it's going to start sizzling. And remember those two little baby fillets. So I'm going to leave them here, but we are going to cook them in there at the last minute as well.
Franck, is there a reason we're not putting oil in our pan when cooking the duck?
Yeah, so you actually don't need to, because what happens is, because we're putting the skin side first, the heat of the pan is going to melt the fat, and then the duck is going to cook in its own fat. So there's no need. In fact, I'm probably going to harvest that fat into a little bowl for next time I do the potatoes, because next time I'll do my potatoes in the oven with duck fat.
We've got a question from Harriet. I'm sure lots of people are cooking your dish tonight as a date night dish at home. So Harriet would like to know, what is your favorite dish to cook for date night?
Something maybe to eat with your fingers. No. Date night normally, my favorite meal to cook at home of all time has to be roast chicken. But I think date night, I would do something light and simple, like maybe avo Ritz would go down very well, I think.
Great. While the duck is cooking, Franck, could you maybe tell us a bit more about what people at home should know about the cooking process, about the rendering of the fat?
So really, it's pretty straightforward. The idea is we're now treating it like a piece of red meat, essentially. And what we need to do is we need to cook that fat slowly. So you need to keep an eye on the heat. I started quite high, but what I might need to do is reduce the heat a little bit. It's about finding the right balance between caramelizing, making the skin nice and brown and crispy without going over, without making it too dark, and making sure that as much as possible of the fat melts away so that you can actually eat the skin without eating too much fat. And then once this is done, depending on how long that takes, it can take from about 5 to 7 to 8 minutes, okay? And then once this is done, we'll turn the meat over and cook it on the meat side. And depending on the thickness of the duck, that'll be probably 1 minute to maybe 2 to 3 minutes max, depending on how you like it. So I like my duck medium rare, but if at home you wanted yours more on the medium side, or maybe even medium well, then you must just cook it longer on the meat side. So I'll go through it again when we turn the meat over. But what I can do for now, I can show you. If you have those at home, just put them in there. Can you see how much fat comes out? Look at this. This is the amount of fat that comes out just of the skin. That's incredible. And then those two little guys, I'm going to cook them for me.
So when you've got all this duck fat that's rendering off the breast, Franck, have you got any tips for our home cooks as to what they can do with this duck fat at home?
Look, you can do anything, but I mean, ultimately the best would be to cook potatoes in it. Basically, like we did with the potatoes with the olive oil, you can actually do exactly the same thing next time, just using your duck fat. But I'm warning you, it's a bit naughty. It's like way more naughty than olive oil. Okay, so let's take a look at the duck. Just want to take a quick peep at the color of the skin. So you see the skin is browning nicely, but it's not rendering quite enough. So I'm going to turn it down a little bit. At least another 3 minutes on the skin side.
And with those scores that you made earlier, is that going to help it get nice and crispy?
The what?
The scores in the...
Yeah, absolutely. So the scores, what the scores do is basically when you put the skin on, when you apply heat, the skin wants to tighten. So basically, once it's been scored, it allows for the elasticity of everything to kind of relax, and every little cut is going to become a crispy bit. So it's going to be really delicious. In fact, I got these little guys just for us to try, or for me to try, because I'm the one cooking.
Franck, we've got a question from Amy now, who asks, what was your favorite restaurant to go to before the lockdown, besides the Foodbarn?
Oh, okay. Oh wow, I've got several restaurants. There's different vibes, but I love the Potluck, Luke's restaurant, just down the road here. I love Sepial Kitchen, which is a little restaurant. It's got the most incredible Korean food. And there's a little place before lockdown that we used to go to a lot in Scarborough called the All Earth Cafe, which is such a cool little place as well, just near the beach. So these are the places that I like. Okay, guys, let's take another look. Not quite. Not quite. Okay, so potatoes ready, duck breast almost ready, sauce ready, red wine.
We've got another question from Fallon, who's asking if there is gastrique left over, can you store it, and what could we use it for? It's too yummy to throw away.
It's too yummy to throw away. There shouldn't be any gastrique left over. Because even if you had enough with your duck, you can still mop it up with bread. And if there is some left over, after that, you put it in the fridge and you eat it with cheese the next day. Like with camembert or brie or even like a good Emmental, it'll be a heaven, heaven, heaven. All right, I think time has come, guys. Focus on the duck. That skin is beautiful. Turning them over. So these are actually fairly thick. So I'm going to cook them for about 1 minute on the meat side. So this pan here is actually a non-stick pan that we didn't need to use. If you were to use a good old pan that is not a non-stick pan, you would probably have some caramelized juices from the duck in the bottom of the pan. So these would be amazing flavor. So another thing you can do is once the duck is finished and ready to be sliced, you can pour your gastrique back in that pan to kind of like gather those juices, if you want to do that. I mean, I can't do it because my pan is non-stick. So all the juices, all the caramelized bit actually stays on the duck.
On that note, Julian would like to know, how long will duck fat keep in the fridge?
Oh, 6 months? Yeah. Just want to show you something here. I'm just doing the push test. So basically, based on the resistance that the meat gives me back, it's very, very soft. So this is rare at this point. So I think by the time taking them off and let them rest, resting meat is one of the most important things you can do. So basically what happens is when you cook it, you apply heat, you caramelize the protein, and all the juices kind of like is pushed to the inside. So taking it off, and resting it for approximately half the time that it's cooked. So let's say this cooked all in all maybe for 10 minutes. So we're going to let it be and leave it alone for 5 minutes so that everything relaxes in it and the juices stay there. So when you slice it, the juices stay in the duck and they don't run onto your board. And here, my duck fat. Look at this. Look at how much this is. It's crazy. From 2 breasts. So harvesting that. and I'll put that in the fridge, and then that can be used again.
It's a zero waste approach here. While our duck breasts are resting, and I think a big congratulations to everyone at home who may have just completed duck for the first time in their lives, Alicia would like to know, how did you and your wife meet?
Ooh, okay. So actually, it's quite a funny story. So I'm going to drop a few names here. So Sandeline, who is now Sandeline Dale Roberts, who is married to Luc Dale Roberts, used to be a waitress with me at La Colombe restaurant. That was in the early days. I'm talking 1994. No, sorry, 1996. And Sandeline was a school friend and a ballet colleague with my wife. They were both ballerinas. And Sando said to Sammy, "Come, you've got to come to the restaurant where I work. It's fantastic. There's that French guy who's amazing and you have to meet him." That's what she said to her. So Sammy came one night, and then that was it. I saw this incredible creature, and I fell head over heels in love. And it took me a while to kind of make my way to get the girl, but eventually I got there. Love you, babe.
We've got another question from Steph, who wants to know if you can tell us about your favorite tattoo.
Okay. Wow. So my best one, I think, would be my octopus. I just love octopus. There's no specific reason. They're beautiful, they're crazy creatures, and they're in the ocean, and I love the ocean. So it's kind of like here now.
Have you ever cooked with octopus before, Franck?
You know, I have, and I don't do it often. But I mean, I love animals, but there is a place for an animal to be eaten, providing that it's been reared and slaughtered in the right way, or it's, if it's a wild animal. I mean, there's a way to do things. There's a way to grow things. There's a way to rear things, and if it's done consciously and sustainably, then it makes it better. It makes it okay.
We've got a question here about wine specifically, but contentious. But in your opinion, which wine is better, French or South African?
Okay, so that's a trick question, and I think it's not fair to compare. It's difficult to compare because the wine, French wine. Okay, first I want to answer the question. I think the best wine is French. I'm going to get lambasted with this, but I think there's a reason behind it. It's because the French have been making wine, and in fact, Europe has been making wine for almost 1,000 years more than the South Africans. And they have got the terroir, first of all, and there's just a lot more, there's a lot of know-how. And they've really nailed down the one thing that South Africa is only starting to do now, is to listen to the terroir, to listen to where and the climate of a place, and what grapes do well in that place. And now, suddenly, in the last 10 years in South Africa, we have discovered that. And suddenly, we're starting to make incredible wines.
For those of you at home who are having a glass of wine, try raise it to your ear, and you might hear the terroir. Franck, I think we're ready to prepare our salad.
Okay, so the rocket, still in the water, so I'm going to get it out of there. So just put your hands in there, get the rocket out, and just shake the water out completely. You must do it long enough. You need to be sure that there's no more water in there. Okay, like that. That's nice and dry. I'm going to put this here. So I've got my gooseberries that I kept aside. So I'm going to cut those in half. So the reason why I cut those in half is, first of all, I want to just have more, so there's like enough for every bite. Secondly, I'm going to salt them a little bit. And basically, when you put salt on a fruit, or on anything really, it pulls out the moisture, it pulls out the natural juices, which is what I want to do here. I want to get the juices out. Put a little bit of salt on this. And then just basically kind of like toss it together. And then that can go into our leaves. So this is wild rocket. So I really like it. It's got like a much thinner leaf, and it's quite a bit pepperier than normal rocket. So salt, add some pepper to this. The salt from the gooseberry that I put on the gooseberry is probably going to be enough. Then to that, I'm going to add a little drizzle of olive oil and just a few drops of white wine vinegar. If you don't have white wine vinegar, red wine vinegar is fine. If you don't have vinegar, you can use a little squeeze of lemon juice. It'll be fine as well. And then you toss that. So this is something that's really recommendable to do. If you're eating leaves, you must dress them. You must toss them together with the dressing. You can't quite beat having some dressing and some seasoning on every single leaf. The only thing is you can't do too far in advance. You must do it now and you must serve it. Otherwise, the vinegar is going to start wilting. The vinegar and the salt are going to start wilting. Okay, let's do the plating. So 2 plates.
Ready to go. While we're plating, we've got a question from Jane who would like to know, how do you keep your meat warm while it's resting?
So you can, so it's quite, we're in a very warm environment here, so I'm not going to worry about it too much because it's still warm. Remember, when you cook the meat, you apply a lot of heat on both sides. And resting it near the stove actually is not going to cool down. If you're worried, you can put a salad bowl over it or just a piece of foil on top of it that it might retain the heat a bit longer, but it's not even necessary. I mean, we're talking 5 minutes here while we do something else, and it's really not that long. If you're resting a large piece of meat, like you've put a 3-kilo joint of beef in the oven and you cooked it for half an hour and you want it medium rare, so now you're now looking at resting a piece of meat for 15 minutes, then definitely cover it with foil, and you'll be surprised. It actually stays warm. It's incredible. Okay, so rocket is on, gooseberries are in. I'm gonna rip my hands. Potatoes. Look at those beauties. So you put some potatoes on the plate. I mean, I'm gonna try and keep it pretty. So look at those, the perfect, exactly as I predicted. Now the garlic clove is just perfect. It's like almost like a puree. It just popped out of its skin. So you got 2 of those per person.
Can you let our chefs at home know what they can expect from the garlic now? Is it the same kind of harsh flavor, or what does it taste like?
Roasted garlic. So roasted garlic is very gentle. It's like sweet. Talking about that's something else that's really delicious with camembert, by the way, guys. If you were to put 20 garlic cloves in the oven just to roast, and you squeeze the pulp out onto cheese, it's absolutely delicious. Okay, duck. So, just gonna do a little sharpening. So duck breast, ready to go on the board. Good knife. Nice slices, about 1/2 centimeter. Can I just show you how beautiful the cooking degree is and how the meat has retained its juices? So we can dish that like that. These are lovely sized breasts, by the way. Oh, I can't believe I just said that. But they are. I mean, they're plump and beautiful. So there's definitely a lovely portion.
Franck, when it comes to plating, have you got any other tips for someone who maybe wants to prepare this for a bigger dinner party or maybe just for one person?
Yeah, so Nick, you could completely dish that on a very big flat platter and put all the rocket and the gooseberries on one side, put the potatoes on the other side, and then just fan the duck, and then basically finish. So it would be the same plating. The only difference is it will be just one large platter that you can put on the table. Okay, our sauce, looking gorgeous and yellow. Let me just taste it to make sure the salt is right. Now the salt is lovely, so perfect. So you put the gooseberries, the actual fruit first, and then a little bit of the sauce, and a little bit on the leaves. And then here as well. This is like, it's like a restaurant quality dish at home. Voila. Oh, wait, that makes this look good. I'll eat that any day.
Well done to Franck and to everyone at home who's just cooked duck for the first time, second or third time, who knows. We've got a few more questions, Franck, before we get stuck into this dish. I know it looks amazing, and we want to tuck in while it's still warm. We've got a question from Hello Impumi, who's asking, what was your favorite dish on the Foodbarn menu?
Wow, you can't ask me that. I love all the dishes on the menu. I think my two best at the moment would be the wild mushroom and ricotta ravioli with truffle cream, and the other one would be the ox tripe stew, the slow stewed with tomato and chili. That'll be my two dishes, hands down.
Well, Franck, thanks so much for walking us through this incredible dish tonight. I hope it was far easier than people were expecting. A big thank you to everyone who has joined us this evening, if you've cooked along or if you've just tuned in. A kind reminder that if you do want to donate to support the Foodbarn staff, you can do so with the SnapScan code at the end, or you can search on the UCOOK social media and you'll find it there. If you're cooking at home, you'll find an insert with it in your box. Franck, we've got time for another question. Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
Bonang would like to know, what is your favorite thing to do besides cooking?
Surfing and horse riding. Absolutely.
I mean, Noordhoek is the place to do that.
Exactly.
That's perfect.
It's all there.
We've got another question from Brandon, and that is, what is your favorite drink?
So, as in party drink or drink, you think? So let's go both.
Let's do both.
Party drink would be a really well-made mojito, and drink has to be wine. There is so much delicious wine, even in South Africa. So it's wine is such an amazing adventure. So you just go on and on. So I love it.
And I think we've got another question here from Marcus, who wants to know, is there anyone that you look up to in terms of their cooking style?
I mean, I can think of all the mentors that I've had over the years. I worked with some incredible chefs. But ultimately, I look up to anyone who is committed, dedicated, and who does what they do with love, like true dedication. If they, even if it's a youngster and I see them doing their thing, I respect that. It's lovely to see.
And then Heather would like to know, what are the donations from this evening's cook-along going towards?
So staff, it's all going towards staff. Mainly, at the moment, we've had a little bunch of staff that was not looked after by the TERS system. So that's who we're going to look after with this. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, guys.
Great, Franck. On that note, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for designing this incredible dish. And thank you for asking everyone's questions. Anything you'd like to say to our home chefs who have been tuning in over the past hour?
Guys, you've cooked duck. Well done. Congratulations to you. Bon appétit. And you must watch Ruben next as well. Maybe he'll beat me in the onion challenge.
Thanks again, Franck. Until next time.
Okay, well done.